In this video, we'll talk about how to prepare for, administer, and score the progress check. Progress checks are an important part of the learning process. They let you and your student know what your student has mastered and what you may need to go back and review. In this video, we'll talk about group classes, but this information applies to one-on-one classes as well. There are 2 progress checks in every book, one in the middle in Lesson 8 and one at the end in Lesson 16. The progress checks are always preceded by a review. The progress checks cover all 4 skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Always make sure to read the lead page in the teacher book before administering the progress check. It has a lot of important information about administering and scoring the test. In fact, a lot of the information we will cover can be found there. Now let's talk about preparing your students. Since the speaking section of the progress check may be new for them, it's good to practice in advance so that they don't get nervous on the day of the progress check. In the speaking portion, the teacher asks the students to answer 3 questions. Then the teacher prompts the students to ask 2 questions. In Intro through Level 2, we use picture prompts to get students to ask the question. In Levels 3 through 5, students are told to ask the teacher something. Make sure to practice both parts of the speaking section with your students before doing the progress check. During the class before the progress check, it's a good idea to talk to your students about the purpose of the progress check. You can tell them that it will let you both know what they understand and what you may need to work on together. You might want to use the opportunity to ask your students if there are things you need to teach differently or give them suggestions for things they may need to study differently. Let your students know that the progress checks can provide feedback for both of you. Now let's talk about giving the progress check. Give the progress check in class as you would give a test. Don't have students complete it for homework. Make sure the students have an hour to complete the progress check. We want to give them plenty of time so that they don't feel rushed. For one-on-one classes, you may spend the whole class just doing the progress check. For group classes, let students know that they'll be called out one by one during the progress check to do the last activity, which is the speaking section. Everyone will start the progress check together with the listening track. Read the instructions out loud, then play the track 3 and only 3 times. Play the complete track each time. You may allow some time between playings. After the listening track, students continue with the progress check independently. For group classes, at this point, you will start pulling out students for the speaking section. For one-on-one classes, just wait until your student gets to the speaking section. Giving the speaking section. You'll find the questions for the speaking section of the progress check in the gray box at the bottom of the page in your teacher book. Start by reading the script to the left of the activity. Then start asking the questions. You can repeat each question once, and you may prompt students to use complete sentences. Students will earn a 0, 1, or 2 for their answers. Scoring information is on the lead page that comes before the lesson. You can remind students to use complete sentences and also repeat the question once. Scoring for each item is 0, 1, or 2. Give a 0 if the student can't answer the question, answers in their native language, or if the answer doesn't make sense. Give 1 point if the student understood the question but answers with incorrect grammar or an incomplete sentence. Give 2 points if the student understood and answers the question with a complete sentence and correct grammar. Let's try some examples. If the teacher says, "What did you do yesterday?" and the student responds, "I'm good," this would be 0 points because the student didn't understand the question. If the teacher asks, "What did you do yesterday?" and the student responds, "I watched TV," this would be 1 point because the student understood the question but wasn't able to answer with the correct grammar tense. If the teacher asks, "What did you do yesterday?" and the student responds, "I watched TV," This would be 2 points because the student was able to understand the question, answer in a complete sentence, and use the correct grammar tense. Scoring the progress check. Teachers should grade the progress checks. You may find it easier to print out copies of the progress check and have students turn them in. For one-on-one classes, you can grade the progress checks in class, rip it out, or take the book with you. When scoring the written part, don't include the examples. Make sure to use the scoring guidelines at the top of each section. There's a space to write the total for each page at the bottom corner. Every progress check has 50 points possible. Multiply the total points the student earned by 2 to come up with a final score. For example, a student who got 40 out of 50 would have a final score of 80. The total score goes at the top of the first page. After scoring the progress check, share the results with your students. For group classes, note common mistakes that you want to review together. For one-on-one classes, you can review the mistakes together. Be sure to also point out the areas where your student did well. The final progress check will also help determine if a student should move on to the next level. In general, a final score of 70 or above means the student is ready to move on to the next book. We hope you enjoyed this video about how to administer and score the progress checks. Please feel free to contact us with any questions.